Chapter 4 The Enuma Elish. Begin all acts and thinking by using Al-Kalun the All. Tablet 1 The Enuma Elish, Epic of Creation. 19 times 9 equals 171. Lo, when the Rakia skies above were not yet named, nor was the earth below, which was then pronounced by the name Tiamat, and Afsu the sun, which is the first one that begot them both. Tiamat, now called Ki, who gave birth to them all, had mixed their waters together, but the pastures were not formed yet, and neither were the reed beds that were discovered. This was at a time when yet no Anunnaki were manifest as Elohim, nor were their names pronounced, nor was their destiny decreed. And then the Elohim were born within the Anunnaki. Lahmu, the planet Mars, and Lahamu, the planet Venus, emerged, and their names were pronounced for all to hear as husband and wife. As soon as they were completely developed and they were fully formed, then emerged Anshar, the planet Saturn, and Kishar, the planet Jupiter, which was developing faster than Lahmu and Lahamu, and it was surpassing them. They also became husband and wife. Their orbits set their days and length of their time. They planned their lives together. They added to the years. This made their days of love and happiness longer. Anu, who is El, and their firstborn son, surpassed his forefathers in divinity. They had a son. Anshar, the planet Saturn, made his son Anu, who is Elion El, of the Denir, the righteous ones of the rocket ship, like himself, in his own image and after his own likeness. And Anu, who is El or An, and his wife Id, then gave birth to Ea, who is also to be called Enki, and was later named Nadimat. Then he took a wife and had a son. The planet Ea was named after the astrological sign, which was Neptune, that is in Anu's own likeness. He, Nadimat, was superior to his forefathers, being in the image of Anu. He was profound and full of understanding. He was wise and was very physically strong, but headstrong and stubborn in his ways for self. In this one thing he did, he differed from Anu. Mightier by far than Anshar, his father's father, he had no rival amongst the Anunnaki, his peers. As time passed, the Anunnaki of that generation would meet together and disturb the planet Ki, as they came here to dig and drill for minerals, which was then called Tiamat, and their clamour caused by the crash reverberated their mining. Then in time, on one of their visits, they caused a great crash. They crashed into Tiamat to split Tiamat into two, one solid, the upper half, the other hammered into asteroids, forming a necklace. Then again they crashed into Tiamat's belly, which formed the inner world called Escherah. They, the Mardecians, were annoying Tiamat by taking residence inside her, which was Andaruna, called Yams, the great seas. Afsu the sun could not shine through her after their great noise. Tiamat became void and darkness was upon the face of the Yams, and there was no sound in front of the Anunnaki. However, that aroused the Mardecians' grievous behaviour towards the residents of Tiamat. However, Vulcan's ways, disagreeable ways, were met with no resistance from Tiamat whatsoever. Finally, Afsu the sun, begetter of the great Anunnaki, called out and addressed his Yahweh, ruler of Mamu, the planet Mercury. O Mamu, Yahweh, in who I am well pleased with, come, let us go to Tiamat. So the craft of the Denir hovered above the surface of the Yam waters. So they went and sat in front of Tiamat to remove the dust cloud, and the sun and Mercury would be seen again, and discuss affairs concerning the Anunnaki and their children, the Elohim of Tiamat. Afsu the sun made his voice heard to the Anunnaki, who asked, "Could you let there be light?" Or Afsu agreed, and there was light. The Elohim spoke to Tiamat, now called Ki, in a loud voice. The light of the sun shining upon Ki again is agreeable. He divided the light in the atmosphere from the darkness outside Ki's atmosphere. The light he named after one of his sons, Yom, and the darkness he named after one of his daughters, Laylat. And there was another daughter, Salamar, evening, and another son, Shakar, morning. This was all done in a new cycle of time, called 1 day of 1,000 years of the Anunnaki, in time to be 7,000 years in the time of Ki, and the firmament was there. The ways of the Mardecians have become very grievous to me. They are causing war and mischief inside my seas. By day I cannot rest, by shadow hour I cannot sleep. I shall abolish their ways and disperse them. Let Salamar's way of peace prevail over Shakar's way of trouble, so that we the Elohim can rest peacefully. As the sun appears to come up in the Shakar morning, it's the beginning of chaos, but in the evening there is peace when the darkness comes. When the inhabitants of Tiamat heard this, their ruler Salamar was furious, and she shouted to her lover. She shouted dreadfully, and she was beside herself with rage. But then she suppressed the evil in her belly. How could we allow our planet, which we ourselves created, to perish? Even though the Maldekians' ways are so grievous, we should bear it patiently. We should not break our peace by killing anyone. The Yahweh of Manu Mercury replied and cancelled Afsu the sun. The Yahweh who ruled Mercury did not agree with the counsel of his earth mother Salamar. O Father Afsu, put an end to their troublesome ways on orb called Ki, so that she may be allowed to rest by daylight hour and sleep by shadow hour. Afsu was pleased with Mamu. His face lit up with joy at the destruction he was planning for the Anunnaki and his own sons, the Elohim. The Yahweh of Mamu Mercury, he hugged him. He sat up on his lap, in which he orbited him, and he kissed, which eclipsed him again and again. Thus Mercury orbits the sun. But everything they plotted between them was relayed to the Anunnaki and their sons, the Elohim. The Anunnaki listened and wondered about restlessly. They fell silent, they sat quietly. Nadimat, son of Anu, the superior in overstanding, the wise and capable Enki as he was to become known, who knows everything, had found out their plot, and he made for himself a design of everything, and laid it out correctly, and he made it cleverly, and his pure spell of Leviathan was superb. He recited the spell, and it ceased the growth in the waters, and all those who were to inhabit Ki, as children of the agreeable Elohim, would be maimed. He poured sleep upon him, so that he was sleeping soundly, as he enforced the spell. He put Afsu to sleep, for it was he who caused the sun to be blocked by the dust cloud. Yahweh of Manu Mercury, in that period, time of darkness, the counselor was in a sleepless daze. He, Nadimat Enki, unfastened his belt, and released the asteroid belt, so that the waters above and beneath became one. He took off his crown, brought life to a stop on the planet Mamu, and he removed the leadership of Salamar. He took away Afsu's mantle of radiance, which is the light from the sun, and he put it on himself. He took rulership over the solar system for himself. He held Afsu the sun down and slew him, and he blocked the light of the sun to Ki, and tied up Manu Mercury and laid him across him. Mercury lost its original orbit. He set up his dwelling on top of Afsu the sun, and he took rulership of the entire solar system, and not just merely the planet Ki. And he grasped and controlled Manu Mercury as he held him by a nose rope. And when he had overcome and slain his enemies, Ian Neptune set up his triumphal cry over his private quarters. He named them Afsu, and assigned temples of Ra, the sun deity. He founded his own residence there. Nadimat and Damkina, his lover, dwelt in splendor. In the chamber of destinies, the hall of designs. His, Nadimat's son, the cleverest of the clever, sage of the Anunnaki, was born, and inside her womb was pure like Afsu, the originator. His name was Murdock, and he was created inside pure Afsu. Murdock was born to Nadimat and Damkina. Damkina, his mother, bore him. He suckled the breasts of the agreeable Anunnaki. The nurse who reared him filled him with awesomeness. Proud was his people, for he was a piercing star. Mature his emergence, he was powerful from the start. Anu, his father's begetter, beheld him, taught by Anu himself, his grandfather, and he was cousin to Adonis Tammuz, son of Ishtar and Dumuzi, among whom he reared. He rejoiced, beamed, his heart was filled with joy. Anu, who is Elion El, made him so perfect that his Anunnaki position was twofold, for he had 720 degrees disagreeable and agreeable within his nature, when all others have 180 in their nature, twice 360 degrees in all. He has 720 degrees twice, 360 of the physical world and 360 degrees of ether or spiritual world. He elevated far above them. He was superior as a teacher in every way. His limbs were ingeniously made, beyond comprehension, impossible to overstand, too difficult to perceive. He had 4 eyes and 4 ears. He perceived through his eyes twice that of others. He hears through his ears twice that of others. When his lips moved, fire blazed forth. When he speaks, he burns away falsehood. The 4 ears were enormous, and likewise the eyes. They perceived everything. Highest amongst the Anunnaki, his form was outstanding. His limbs were very long. His fame spreaded far. His height was normal. His stature was the same as others, yet he was outstanding. Anu cried out, Mariutu, Mariutu, rebel, rebel, son, majesty, majesty of the Anunnaki, ordered by Anu to rebel against Enki. Clothed in the radiant mantle of 10 Anunnaki, which was worn high above his head, there were 5 fearsome rays which clustered above him. Anu created the 4 winds that protect Nibiru and gave them birth life. And he put them in his Murdock's hand. My grandson, let them play. He fashioned dust and made the whirlwind carry it. He made the flood wave and he stirred up Tiamat. Tiamat was stirred up and heaved restlessly in daylight hour and shadow hour. The disagreeable Anunnaki were unable to rest, and they had to suffer. They plotted disagreeableness in their hearts, and they addressed Tiamat their mother, saying, because they slew Apsu the sun, your lover, and they blocked the sun's rays from embracing the earth with its loving warmth and vitality, and you, agreeable Allahum, did not go to Mamu's and Tiamat's aid, but rather you would sit in silence through its dark period. He has created the 4 fearful winds of Nibiru to stir up your belly on purpose by opening Esharah, and we simply cannot sleep. Was your lover Apsu the sun not in your heart? Yahweh of Mamu Mercury who was captured. No wonder you sit alone. Are you not a mother, Tiamat? You heave restlessly. But what about us who cannot rest? Don't you love us? Your grip has weakened, and it is slack, and our eyes are sunken. Remove the yoke of us restless ones, and let us sleep. Set up a battle cry, and avenge them. Conquer the Maldekian enemies, and reduce them to naught. Tiamat listened, and the speech pleased her. Let us act now on this, and bring it to pass as you are advising. The Anunnaki inside Esharah will be disturbed, because they adopted the ways of the disagreeable one Enki, and his host were the Allahum who begot them. They crowded around and rallied beside Tiamat. They were fierce, scheming restlessly shadow hour and daylight hour. They were working up to war, growling and raging. They convened a council and created conflict. Mother Huba, who fashions all things, contributed an unfaceable weapon. She bore giant snakes and reptilians in her seas. With sharp teeth and unsparing fangs, disagreeable in heart and rebellious in nature, she filled their bodies with venom instead of blood. She cloaked ferocious dragons with fearsome rays of power, and made them bear mantles of radiance, and made them appear like Allahum. Whoever look upon these reptilians shall collapse in utter terror. Their bodies shall rear up continually and never turn away. She stationed a horned serpent, a Masusu dragon, and Lafmu, the planet Mars, which was the first home away from home of the agreeable Anunnaki. The false Ugalu demon, a rabid dog called Anubis, and a scorpion man called Iblis, aggressive Umu demons called Tanin, a fishman called Dagon, and a bullman called Enkidu, and all offsprings of Murdock were bearing merciless weapons fearsome in battle. Her orders were so powerful they could not be disobeyed. In addition, she created 11 more crafts, and she launched them at Nibiru, over the Allahum her offspring, who had convened a council for her. She promoted the ruler Luna, who is Sheski Kingu, ruler of the moon, and made him the greatest amongst them. She conferred upon him leadership of the army, and thus those who worship the crescent moon attribute it to Dina. She gave him command of the assembly to raise the weapon to signal engagement and muster combat troops, and overall commanded a whole battle force. She set him upon a throne and said, I have cast the spell of Leviathan, the great Tanin called Shaitan, for you, and made you the greatest of the Anunnakai's assembly. I have put him into your power. Rule over all the Anunnakai. You shall be the greatest, for you are my only lover. Your command shall always prevail over all the Anunnakai. Then she, Ishtar, ruled Luna over the deities in that solar system. She gave Kingu the tablets of destinies and made him clasp it into his breast. Your utterance shall never be altered, your word shall be law. When Sheski, also known as Luna, ruler of the moon, child of Tiamat, was promoted, he received the Anu power. He decreed destinies for the Anunnakai his sons and said, those issues that come forth from your mouths shall quench fire. Your accumulated venom that reaches any and all shall paralyze the powerful. Tablet 2, Enuma Elish 2, 19 times 7 equals 133. Lo! Tiamat assembled her creatures, and the reptilians of Murdock, the controllers of Ki, and collected battle units against the reptilians, her offspring. Tiamat did even more evil for posterity than Afsu the sun. It was reported to Nadimad that Tiamat had prepared for war. Nadimad listened to the report from planet Ea, Neptune, and he was dumbfounded and sat in silence. When Nadimad had pondered and his fury subsided, Nadimad made his way to the planet Anshar, Saturn, which is his grandfather's planet. Nadimad came before Anshar, the father of him who begot him, and he began to report to him everything that the Maldekians that ruled Tiamat had planned. Grandfather, the planet Tiamat who bore us is rejecting us. She has convened a council and is raging out of control. The Anunnakai have turned to the aid of Tiamat, and all of them, even your children, those whom you begot such as Anu and Antum, have gone over to Tiamat's side. They crowded around and rallied beside Tiamat. They were fierce, scheming restlessly Shadow Hour and Daylight Hour. They were working up to war, growling and raging. They convened a council and created conflict. As was stated earlier, Mother Huba, who fashions all things, contributed an unfaceable weapon. She bore giant snakes, reptilians in her seas, with sharp teeth and unsparing fangs, disagreeable in heart and rebellious in nature. She filled their bodies with venom instead of blood. She cloaked ferocious dragons with fearsome rays of power, and made them bear mantles of radiance, which made them appear like Allahum. Their accumulated venom that reaches any and all shall paralyze the powerful. Anshar listened, and the report was very disturbing. He twisted his fingers, balled up his fist, and frowned his face, biting his lip. His liver was inflamed, nerves on edge, and his belly was restless. His roar to Ea, his grandson, was quite weak. You must be the one who declares war. Keep brandishing what you have made as arms for yourself. You are the hero, the conqueror. You slew Afsu the sun. Where else will we find someone to face the inhabitants of Tiamat when she rages uncontrollably? You were born with a good sense of the Anunnakai, O Nadimad. In anger, Nadimad made his voice heard. You are the unfathomable fixer of fates. The power to create and to destroy is yours. O Anshar, you are the unfathomable fixer of fates. The power to create and destroy is yours. The fate with which you order immediately comes to pass. Anshar listened, and the speech pleased him. His heart prompted him to speak to Nadimad. Your courage, like an Anunnakai, has given you the power to rise up against the inhabitants of Tiamat. He, Anshar, addressed Anu his son, saying, This is Kasusu, weapon of warriors. Its strength is mighty, its attack unfaceable. Go against the inhabitants of Tiamat and stand your ground. Let her anger abate, and let her fury be quelled. If she will not listen to your word, speak your words of force to her, that she may be calmed. Anu listened to the speech of his father Anshar, and took up the path to Tiamat, and made his way straight to her. Anu set out and came to Earth. He was trying to find out the strategy of the inhabitants of Tiamat. He discovered it, and he turned back. He entered into the presence of Anshar, the father who begot him. He humbly addressed him. "O Anshar, you are too great for me." She laid before me with the palms of her hand on top of me. Anshar was speechless and stared at the ground. He gnashed his teeth in anger and shook his head in despair at Nadimad. Now the Agigi assembled all the Anunnaki. They stayed silently for a while, tight-lipped. "Will no other Anunnaki cometh forward? Is fate fixed? Will no one go out to face the Maldekians, who inhabited the seas of Tiamat with courage?" Then Nadimad from his secret dwelling called, "The Perfect One, grandson of Anshar, father of the great Anunnaki, whose heart is perfect like a fellow citizen or countryman pure, the mighty heir who was to be his father's champion, who rushes fiercely into battle, Murdock the hero." He told him the innermost design, saying, "O Murdock, take my advice, listen to your father. You are the son who sets his heart at rest. Approach Anshar. As you are drawing near him, make your voice heard and stand your ground. He will be calmed by the sight of you." The Yahweh rejoiced at the words of his father, and he approached and stood before Anshar. Anshar looked at him, and his heart was filled with joy. He kissed him on the lips, put away his trepidation. Then Murdock addressed him, saying, "Father, don't stay so silent. Open your lips. Let me go, and let me fulfill your heart's desire." "Ruler of Anshar, don't stay so silent. Open your lips. Let me go, and let me fulfill your heart's desire." Anshar replied, "What kind of men have ordered out this war? My son, don't you realize that it is the inhabitants of Tiamat and Ishtar, ruler of womankind, who will advance against you with arms?" Murdock answered, "Father, my creator, rejoice and be glad. You shall soon set your foot upon the necks of the inhabitants of Tiamat." Anshar replied, "Then go, son, knowing all wisdom. Quell Tiamat with your pure spell. Set forth immediately in the craft to the sound of lightning, a storm chariot. Let its mission not be to drive them out, but rather turn them back." The Yahweh rejoiced at the words of his father. His heart was glad, and he addressed his father, "Yahweh of the Alahum, fate of the great Anunnaki, if indeed I am to be your champion, if I am to defeat those who have occupied Tiamat and have your lives, convene the council, name a special fate, sit joyfully together in Upshu-Ukunaku. My own utterance shall fix the fate instead of you. Whatever I create shall never be altered. The decree of my lips shall never be revoked and never changed."